The man in room 412 had been there for 6 days. No room service orders, no housekeeping requests, no complaints. Complete silence. Hotel staff assumed he was just a quiet business traveler, until a mysterious phone call revealed the shocking truth about who he really was and what he was doing in that room. What they found when they finally opened that door would change everything they thought they knew about ordinary guests and save millions of lives. Welcome to The Last Witness. Before we dive into this incredible story, please subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and let us know in the comments which city you're watching from today. Your support helps us bring you more amazing stories like this one. Marcus Thompson, the night manager at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, had worked in hospitality for 15 years. Located in the heart of downtown, the hotel catered to business travelers, tourists, and the occasional celebrity seeking discretion. He'd seen everything from diplomatic incidents to corporate espionage attempts, but the guest in room 412 was different in a way that made his experienced instincts whisper warnings. The man had checked in 6 days ago on a quiet Tuesday evening. Marcus remembered the interaction clearly because it had been so unremarkable, yet somehow memorable. Average height, maybe 5'10", dark hair with early traces of gray, wearing a simple navy business suit that looked expensive but understated. He carried a single black rolling suitcase and a laptop bag, both showing signs of frequent travel, but well maintained. When he approached the front desk, Marcus had been covering for Sarah during her dinner break. The man's voice was calm, professional, with just a hint of an accent that Marcus couldn't quite place. Could have been East Coast, could have been international. He'd seen that kind of cultivated neutrality before in diplomats and high-level corporate executives. "I need a room for 1 week," the man had said, sliding a Nevada driver's license across the marble counter. "David Chen, I've made a reservation." Marcus had pulled up the reservation on his system, prepaid through a corporate account, requested a room with reliable internet and minimal noise. Standard business traveler requests, nothing unusual there. What struck Marcus was how the man paid the incidental deposit, 8 crisp $100 bills, counted out with the precision of someone accustomed to handling cash transactions. "I'll be working on a project that requires complete concentration," David had explained when Marcus handed over the key card. "I'd prefer not to be disturbed under any circumstances. No housekeeping, no room service calls, no maintenance unless there's an emergency. Can you make a note in your system?" Marcus had accommodated stranger requests. Some guests were genuinely obsessive about privacy. He'd flagged the account with a VIP privacy notation and assured David that his wishes would be respected. The man had nodded, taken his key card, and disappeared into the elevator. That was the last time anyone at the hotel had seen him leave his room. For the first 2 days, Marcus hadn't thought much about it. David's key card showed he'd accessed his room Tuesday evening, and hadn't used it since. The Do Not Disturb sign appeared on his door Wednesday morning, and never moved. Housekeeping reported checking the hallway twice daily, as part of their routine, and the sign remained constant. No towel requests, no ice bucket usage, no calls to the front desk. By Thursday, the housekeeping supervisor, Maria Santos, had started asking questions. Maria had worked hotels for 23 years, and took pride in knowing her guests' habits. She could tell you which guest wanted extra towels, who preferred their rooms cleaned early, and who left the biggest tips. A guest who generated absolutely no requests for 4 straight days was unusual enough to catch her attention. "Maybe he's one of those work-from-home types," suggested Janet, one of the newer housekeepers. "You know how those tech people can get when they're in their zone. My nephew does computer programming, and sometimes he forgets to eat for 2 days straight when he's working on something big." Maria wasn't convinced. Even tech people need clean towels eventually, and the trash cans don't empty themselves. "I've never seen a guest go this long without generating any kind of service request." By Friday, Marcus found himself deliberately walking past room 412 during his evening rounds. The hallway was always quiet on the fourth floor. Business travelers tended to prefer the lower floors for easier access, so the upper floors housed longer-term guests and those seeking extra privacy. The Do Not Disturb sign hung at exactly the same angle it had maintained since Wednesday. No room service trays outside the door. No shoes left out for polishing. No newspapers accumulating. It was as if the room existed in suspended animation. The only signs of occupancy were subtle. The slight glow of light visible under the door during evening hours, suggesting someone was awake and active inside. The fact that David's keycard hadn't triggered any exit records. Security cameras showed no one entering or leaving the room, except for David's initial arrival Tuesday evening. The air conditioning system showed normal usage patterns for an occupied room. Someone was definitely inside, but they might as well have been invisible. Saturday brought a new wrinkle to the mystery. Marcus was reviewing the weekly expense reports when he noticed an unusual pattern in the hotel's internet usage data. Room 412 was consuming an extraordinary amount of bandwidth, not just high usage, but sustained intensive data transmission that dwarfed even their most connectivity-demanding business guests. The pattern showed constant activity from approximately 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. daily, with brief quiet periods that Marcus assumed were sleep breaks. "That's more data usage than our entire conference center during a tech summit," observed Jennifer Walsh, the hotel's IT coordinator, when Marcus showed her the reports. "Whatever he's doing, it's incredibly data-intensive. Streaming multiple 4K videos simultaneously wouldn't generate this kind of traffic." Marcus's unease was growing. 15 years in hospitality had taught him to recognize patterns, and David Chen wasn't fitting any pattern he knew. The combination of absolute privacy demands, zero service requests, and massive internet usage was unprecedented in his experience. Sunday evening, Marcus decided to conduct his own quiet investigation. During his routine floor walkthrough, he positioned himself near room 412 and listened carefully. Through the heavy door, he could hear the faint but constant sound of multiple keyboards being used simultaneously. Not just typing, but the rapid staccato rhythm of someone working with intense focus. Occasionally, he caught fragments of what sounded like phone conversations, though the words were too muffled to make out clearly. Marcus tried to convince himself he was overthinking the situation. Privacy-obsessed business travelers weren't unprecedented. High bandwidth usage could be explained by video conferencing, cloud computing, or large file transfers. The cash payment might indicate someone trying to maintain discretion for perfectly legitimate business reasons, but his instincts, honed by years of managing a hotel that attracted everyone from foreign diplomats to corporate whistleblowers, kept telling him something significant was happening in room 412. Monday brought an escalation that confirmed Marcus's suspicions. At 2:15 a.m., during the quiet hours when the hotel operated with minimal staff, Marcus was approached by a man in a dark suit, who identified himself as Agent Peterson from an unspecified federal agency. The agent showed credentials that looked authentic, but Marcus had learned to be cautious about late-night visits from people claiming government authority. "We understand you have a guest who's been maintaining unusual privacy practices," Agent Peterson had said, his tone professional but urgent. "We're not looking to disturb him, but we need to verify his safety and security. Has there been any unusual activity around room 412? Marcus had provided a careful summary of his observations: the sustained occupancy, the privacy requests, the high internet usage. Agent Peterson listened without taking notes, which Marcus found noteworthy. Experienced law enforcement usually documented everything. Has he had any visitors, any deliveries, any contact with other guests or staff members? Agent Peterson pressed. "None that we've observed," Marcus replied. "He specifically requested no services, and we've honored that request. The only unusual thing is the internet usage patterns." Agent Peterson's expression sharpened at the mention of internet activity. "What kind of patterns?" "Sustained high bandwidth usage around the clock. Our IT coordinator says it's unlike anything she's seen from a single guest room." The agent nodded as if this information confirmed something he'd been expecting. "Mr. Thompson, what I'm about to tell you must remain confidential. Your guest is involved in sensitive work that serves national security interests. The privacy he's requested isn't just personal preference, it's operational necessity. We need you to continue providing that privacy, while staying alert for any signs of external interest in his activities." Marcus felt a chill of recognition. He'd hosted government personnel before, though usually they identified themselves up front and coordinated with hotel security. The fact that David Chen had maintained such deep cover suggested his work was extraordinarily sensitive. "Is there anything specific we should watch for?" Marcus asked. "Anyone asking unusual questions about your guest? Any attempts to access the fourth floor by people who don't belong there? Any technical issues with your internet or phone systems? If you notice anything like that, contact this number immediately." Agent Peterson handed Marcus a card with only a phone number printed on it. After the agent left, Marcus found himself unable to sleep. He'd always known his hotel occasionally hosted people involved in sensitive work, but this felt different. The level of secrecy, the federal interest, the sustained isolation all suggested David Chen was engaged in something far more significant than routine government business. Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after David's arrival, Marcus's world changed forever. The call came at 3:47 a.m., jarring Marcus from the light sleep he'd finally managed. The caller ID showed only a number, no name or organization. "Grand Metropolitan Hotel, this is Marcus. I need to speak with the manager immediately." The voice was different from Agent Peterson's, more urgent, carrying an edge of controlled panic. "This concerns the guest in room 412. Marcus was instantly alert. "May I ask who's calling?" "Agent Rodriguez, FBI Cyber Crimes Division." "Mr. Thompson, I need you to listen very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but every word is true. The man in room 412 is not just a guest in your hotel. For the past 7 days, he's been the only thing standing between this city and the largest coordinated cyber attack in American history." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "I'm sorry, what?" "David Chen is one of our top cybersecurity specialists, operating under deep cover. For the past week, he's been tracking and intercepting a sophisticated attack designed to simultaneously compromise every critical infrastructure system in your city. Power grids, water treatment facilities, hospital networks, emergency services, transportation controls, financial systems. The attackers plan to bring everything down at once during tomorrow morning's rush hour." Marcus gripped the phone, his mind struggling to process the magnitude of what he was hearing. "You mean he's been preventing catastrophe?" Agent Rodriguez confirmed. "Working 18-hour days, sleeping in 4-hour shifts, living on whatever food he brought with him, because leaving the room even briefly could compromise months of preparation. He's been fighting a digital war from your hotel room, and until tonight he was winning. Until tonight, we've lost contact with him. His last communication was at 11:43 p.m., reporting he was entering the final phase of the countermeasures. Since then, nothing. Either something has happened to him, or he's so deep in the final battle that he can't spare attention for anything else." Marcus looked at his watch. 3:52 a.m. "What do you need me to do?" "We need immediate verification that he's safe and operational. We've tried calling his room directly, but he's not answering. We can't risk sending agents to check on him, because any unusual activity in your hotel could alert the attackers that they've been discovered. But you can check on him as part of normal hotel operations." Marcus was already moving toward the elevator. "I'm going up now, Mr. Thompson. Before you go, you need to understand what's at stake. These aren't typical hackers looking to steal credit card numbers. This is a coordinated assault designed to cause maximum chaos and destruction. If they succeed, people will die. Hospital patients will lose life support. Traffic control systems will fail during rush hour, causing massive accidents. Water treatment plants will shut down, potentially poisoning entire neighborhoods. The economic damage alone would be in the hundreds of billions." As Marcus rode the elevator to the 4th floor, Agent Rodriguez continued his briefing. The attack had been planned for over 2 years by a sophisticated criminal organization, with connections to several hostile foreign intelligence services. Their goal wasn't just financial gain or political statement. They wanted to demonstrate that America's infrastructure was vulnerable, to create fear and chaos that would undermine confidence in the government's ability to protect its citizens. David Chen had been tracking this organization for 18 months, slowly infiltrating their networks, mapping their capabilities, identifying their targets. When intelligence indicated the attack was imminent, he'd gone into complete isolation to focus every ounce of his attention on stopping them. The hotel room was perfect, Agent Rodriguez explained. Excellent internet connectivity, complete privacy, and most importantly, absolutely no connection to any government facility. The attackers have been monitoring federal buildings, known safe houses, even trying to identify which hotels government personnel frequent. Your hotel wasn't on their radar because Agent Chen had never stayed there before. The elevator dinged softly as it reached the 4th floor. The hallway stretched before Marcus, emergency lighting casting long shadows between the widely spaced room doors. Room 412 was at the far end, the Do Not Disturb sign still hanging exactly where it had been for 7 days. As Marcus approached, he could hear something that made his blood run cold. Silence. Not the productive silence of someone working quietly, but the absolute absence of sound. No keyboard clicking, no muffled phone conversations, no electrical humming. For the first time in a week, room 412 was completely quiet. Agent Rodriguez, Marcus whispered into the phone. I'm outside his room. It's completely silent. That could mean he's sleeping. Or the agent's voice trailed off, leaving the ominous alternative unspoken. Marcus pressed his ear to the door, listening intently. After a moment, he heard the faint but unmistakable sound of multiple computer fans running at high speed, the kind of white noise that indicated serious computing equipment under heavy load. Whatever David was doing, the computers were still working, even if David himself was silent. Mr. Chen, Marcus called softly, knocking gently on the door. This is Marcus Thompson, the hotel manager. I have an urgent message for you. Nothing. Marcus knocked again, slightly louder. Sir, I have Agent Rodriguez on the phone. He says it's critical. Still nothing. Marcus looked at his master key card, then at the phone still connected to Agent Rodriguez. He's not responding, Marcus reported, but I can hear computer equipment running inside. We need to know if he's safe, Agent Rodriguez said. Mr. Thompson, I'm authorizing you to enter that room. What you see inside must remain absolutely confidential, but we need immediate verification of Agent Chen's status. Marcus hesitated. In 15 years of hotel management, he'd never violated a guest's privacy without explicit legal authority, but the magnitude of what Agent Rodriguez had described made this decision easier. I'm going in, Marcus said, sliding his keycard through the electronic lock. The locks disengaged with their familiar click, and Marcus slowly opened the door. What he saw inside room 412 took his breath away and changed everything he thought he knew about the quiet guest who'd been living there for a week. The hotel room had been completely transformed into something that looked like a high-tech command center from a spy movie. Every piece of hotel furniture had been carefully moved to create workspace for an extraordinary array of electronic equipment. Multiple laptops were connected to external monitors of various sizes, creating a semicircle of screens around a central workspace. Cables ran everywhere, connecting devices in configurations Marcus couldn't begin to understand. Digital displays showed streaming data, network diagrams, maps of city infrastructure, and lines of computer code that scrolled continuously. Communication equipment hummed quietly in one corner, including devices Marcus was certain weren't available to civilian consumers. The air conditioning was running at maximum capacity to manage the heat generated by all the electronics, and the room smelled faintly of ozone and hot metal. In the center of this technological maze sat David Chen, but he looked nothing like the quiet business traveler who'd checked in a week ago. His hair was disheveled, his clothes rumpled from days of continuous wear. His eyes were bloodshot with exhaustion,
but they remained sharp and focused as his fingers moved across multiple keyboards with practiced precision. He wore a headset and was speaking rapidly in technical jargon Marcus couldn't follow. Status report on the power grid intrusion vectors, David was saying, his voice hoarse from fatigue. I'm showing attempted access through the SCADA systems, but the honeypots are holding. Redirect their attention to the decoy servers while I reinforce the primary defenses. David hadn't even noticed Marcus's entrance. Every ounce of his attention was focused on the screens in front of him, where Marcus could see what appeared to be a real-time digital battle unfolding. Lines of code streamed across monitors, network diagrams flashed warning colors, and status indicators changed from red to green and back again, as David's fingers danced across his keyboards. "My God," Marcus whispered, speaking into the phone. "Agent Rodriguez, you need to see this. He's turned the entire room into some kind of command center. There are computers and monitors everywhere, and Marcus paused, watching David work with inhuman intensity. "He's fighting them right now, isn't he?" "Yes," Agent Rodriguez confirmed, relief evident in his voice. "He's in the middle of the final countermeasures. The attack is scheduled to begin in less than 4 hours, and he's implementing the last layer of defenses." For the first time, David looked up and noticed Marcus standing in his doorway. His expression showed momentary confusion, as if he'd forgotten where he was or that the outside world existed. "Manager," David said, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus held up his phone. "Agent Rodriguez needs to speak with you. He says it's urgent." David's expression immediately sharpened. He gestured for Marcus to approach, never taking his hands off the keyboards. When Marcus handed him the phone, David listened intently while continuing to type commands with his free hand. "Rodriguez, this is Chen." "Status report," David said, his exhausted voice suddenly crisp and professional. Marcus couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but he watched David's expression grow increasingly grave. During the brief exchange, David's fingers never stopped moving across his keyboards, multitasking at a level Marcus had never seen before. "Understood," David said finally, handing the phone back to Marcus. "We have a problem." For the first time in 7 days, David looked directly at Marcus, and the hotel manager saw the weight of enormous responsibility in the man's eyes. "They found this location," David explained, his voice steady despite his obvious exhaustion. "The attackers have identified the source of the countermeasures. In approximately 15 minutes, they're going to attempt to shut down the internet connection to this building, possibly through physical infrastructure damage. If they succeed before I finish implementing the final defenses, everything I've built over the past week collapses, and the attack proceeds as planned." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What can we do?" David was already moving, rapidly saving his work and beginning shutdown procedures on some of his equipment. "I need to relocate the critical operations to a backup location immediately. The secondary site won't have the same capabilities as this setup, but it might be enough to complete the mission." "Where can you go?" "That's the problem. Every government facility in the city is being monitored. Every known safe house is compromised. I need somewhere with excellent internet connectivity, complete privacy, and absolutely no connection to federal operations." Marcus found himself speaking before he'd fully formed the thought. "The business center." David looked up sharply. "What?" "Our business center on the 2nd floor. It has high-speed internet connectivity. It's completely isolated from guest areas, and most importantly, it has a separate entrance through the parking garage. If you need to continue working without being detected, I can get you there without anyone seeing you move." For the first time in a week, David smiled, though it was strained with exhaustion. "That could work. How quickly can we move the essential equipment?"
10 minutes, Marcus replied, surprising himself with his certainty. "I'll coordinate with security to clear the route. We can use the service elevators and maintenance corridors." The next 12 minutes were the most intense of Marcus's career. While David continued his digital battle against the cyber attackers, Marcus orchestrated a covert operation within his own hotel. He contacted the night security supervisor, Alberto Vargas, and explained they were assisting with a federal operation that required moving sensitive equipment without being observed. Alberto, a former military police officer, asked no questions and immediately cleared the necessary corridors. Using hotel service elevators and maintenance passages, they moved David's most critical equipment down 2 floors to the business center, a route that avoided all public areas and security cameras accessible to outside monitoring. The business center, normally used for guest presentations and small conferences, was transformed into a backup command center within minutes. David re-established his operation with remarkable speed, his exhausted mind still functioning with precision, as he reconnected critical systems and resumed his defense of the city's infrastructure. Status? Agent Rodriguez asked when Marcus called to report their successful relocation. Operational, Marcus replied, watching David's fingers fly across keyboards as lines of code streamed across hastily reconnected monitors. He says he needs about 20 more minutes to complete the final countermeasures. 20 minutes, Agent Rodriguez repeated. The attack is scheduled to begin in 3 hours and 17 minutes. If he can finish those countermeasures, the city will be protected. If not, Marcus didn't need him to finish the sentence. 3 million people would wake up to a nightmare of failed infrastructure, chaos, and potentially significant loss of life. For the next 23 minutes, Marcus watched David Chen fight an invisible war for the soul of his city. The hotel manager found himself understanding, for the first time, what it meant when people talked about cyber warfare. This wasn't abstract hacking or remote computer crimes. This was a battle for the systems that kept people alive, that maintained order, that protected the most vulnerable members of society. On David's monitors, Marcus could see real-time displays of the city's critical infrastructure, power grid status indicators, water treatment plant operations, hospital network security, emergency services communication systems, traffic control networks. All of it was under attack by sophisticated adversaries who had spent years planning this coordinated assault. David's work was like watching a master chess player facing multiple opponents simultaneously. His fingers moved constantly between different keyboards, each controlling different defensive systems. On one screen, he was reinforcing hospital network security. On another, he was redirecting attackers away from water treatment controls. A third monitor showed him laying digital traps for the infiltrators. There, David said suddenly, his voice filled with exhaustion and relief. Final countermeasure is deployed. On the screens around them, Marcus watched as attacking programs hit digital walls that David had spent 7 days constructing. One by one, the attempted intrusions failed, their code redirected to harmless decoy systems, or simply blocked by layers of defense that were invisible to everyone except the attackers who encountered them. Agent Rodriguez's voice came through Marcus's phone, which had remained connected throughout the operation. David, we're seeing the results here. All target systems are showing secure status. The intrusion attempts are being successfully repelled across the board. David leaned back in his chair, finally allowing himself to show the full extent of his exhaustion. For 7 days, he had carried the weight of an entire city's safety on his shoulders, working 18-hour shifts, eating minimally, sleeping in brief snatches, never leaving his post. 3 million people will wake up tomorrow with working electricity, clean water, functioning hospitals, and operational emergency services, David said quietly. And they'll never know how close they came to losing all of it. Marcus stared at the man who had spent nearly a week in his hotel, fighting an invisible war to protect an entire city. Why didn't you tell us? We could have helped. Because the best security sometimes requires that nobody knows security exists, David replied, his voice heavy with fatigue. If anyone had known what was happening in room 412, it could have compromised everything. The attackers have informants everywhere, including in the hospitality industry. The only way to maintain operational security was to appear completely ordinary. Over the next hour, as FBI agents arrived to secure the scene and conduct David's debrief, Marcus learned the full scope of what had been prevented. The cyber attack would have shut down traffic management systems during morning rush hour, causing massive accidents as traffic lights failed and highway information systems went dark. Hospitals would have lost power during critical surgeries, their backup generators sabotaged through compromised maintenance systems. Water treatment plants would have been contaminated through hijacked chemical control systems, potentially poisoning hundreds of thousands of people. The economic impact alone would have been catastrophic. Financial networks would have crashed, wiping out savings and halting commerce. Communication systems would have failed, preventing coordination of emergency response. The psychological damage of seeing American infrastructure so completely compromised would have lasted for years. This was designed to be America's 9/11s for the digital age. Agent Rodriguez explained to Marcus during the debriefing, a coordinated attack that would demonstrate our vulnerability and create lasting fear about the safety of our most basic systems. 2 weeks later, the Grand Metropolitan Hotel received an official letter of commendation from the Department of Homeland Security, praising the staff's cooperation in a matter of critical national security. The letter couldn't specify details due to classification requirements, but it noted that the hotel had played a crucial role in preventing a major threat to public safety and national security. Marcus kept the letter framed in his office, but more importantly, he kept the memory of those 7 days, when a quiet guest in room 412 had been saving lives while the world slept peacefully, unaware of the digital battle being fought for their safety. David Chen checked out that Tuesday morning, leaving room 412 exactly as he'd found it. The housekeeping staff cleaned it like any other room after a week-long stay, unaware they were erasing the evidence of one of the most important cybersecurity operations in the city's history. Only Marcus knew that this unremarkable hotel room had been the command center for a digital battle that had saved countless lives. Months later, Marcus would occasionally get calls from federal agents asking about available rooms for consultants who needed privacy and excellent internet connections. He always accommodated these requests without question, understanding now that sometimes the most important work happens in the most ordinary places, protected by the anonymity of everyday life. The next time you're in a hotel and notice a guest who keeps to themselves, who orders minimal room service, and never seems to leave their room, remember David Chen. Remember that ordinary-looking people sometimes carry extraordinary responsibilities, fighting battles we never see to keep our world safe and functional. Sometimes the most important heroes are the ones whose names we'll never know, working tirelessly in hotel rooms, office buildings, and other unremarkable places, standing between us and those who would harm innocent people for profit, ideology, or simple malice. What would you have done in Marcus's position? Would you have questioned a guest's unusual behavior earlier, or would you have respected their privacy completely? When federal agents approached you with an extraordinary request, would you have been willing to risk your career to help save your city? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to The Last Witness for more incredible stories of ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. The man in room 412 had been there for 6 days. No room service, no housekeeping, complete silence. Hotel staff thought he was just a quiet business traveler, until a mysterious phone call revealed who he really was and what he was doing. What they found when they opened that door would save millions of lives. Welcome to The Last Witness. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and tell us which city you're watching from today. Marcus Thompson, night manager at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, had worked hospitality for 15 years. He'd seen everything, but the guest in room 412 was different. The man checked in 6 days ago with minimal luggage, paid cash for a week, then vanished into his room. The guest registry showed David Chen, a software consultant from Seattle. Average height, dark hair, unremarkable clothes. He'd been polite but brief during check-in, asking only for good internet, and requesting not to be disturbed under any circumstances. For 6 days, housekeeping reported the Do Not Disturb sign permanently on his door. No towel requests, no room service, no complaints. The only sign of life was occasional light under his door, and his keycard showing no exits. Maybe he's one of those tech guys who codes for days, suggested Sarah from the front desk. You know how they get in the zone. Marcus nodded, but something felt wrong. Even reclusive guests eventually needed something: food, towels, ice. Everyone left their room eventually. On the 7th day morning,
everything changed. The call came at 3:47 a.m. Grand Metropolitan Hotel, this is Marcus. I need the manager immediately. The voice was urgent. This concerns the guest in room 412. May I ask who's calling? Agent Rodriguez, FBI. Listen carefully. The man in room 412 isn't who you think he is. What he's been doing for 6 days just prevented a major catastrophe. Marcus felt his blood run cold. What? David Chen is one of our top cybersecurity specialists. For the past week, he's been working around the clock to prevent a coordinated cyber attack on the city's infrastructure, power grids, water systems, hospital networks. He's been operating from his room to maintain absolute security. You mean he's been saving lives, and he's about to finish the most critical phase. But we have a problem. We've detected movement from the attackers. They may have found his location. We need your help. What do you need? First, verify he's safe. He hasn't responded to communications in 4 hours. Second, we may need to evacuate him quickly. Can you access his room? Yes, but he requested no disturbances. Mr. Thompson, 3 million people could lose power, water and emergency services if this attack succeeds. Mr. Chen's work is the only thing standing between this city and chaos. Marcus grabbed his master keycard. As he rode the elevator, Agent Rodriguez explained the situation. A criminal organization had been planning to attack multiple infrastructure systems simultaneously. The plan was to create maximum chaos during morning rush hour, causing accidents, shutting down hospitals, creating panic. David Chen had been tracking this group for months, working undercover to infiltrate their networks. When intelligence suggested the attack was imminent, he'd gone into isolation to focus on stopping them without detection. The elevator reached the 4th floor. Room 412 was at the far end, the Do Not Disturb sign still hanging where it had been for 6 days. Marcus approached carefully, hearing faint electronic equipment humming and rapid keyboard clicking. Mr. Chen, he called softly. This is Marcus Thompson, hotel manager. I have an urgent message. The typing stopped. After a moment, a tired voice responded. I said no disturbances. Sir, I have Agent Rodriguez on the phone. He says it's critical. Long pause, then multiple locks disengaging. The door opened just enough to reveal a man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Bloodshot eyes, disheveled hair, but sharp and alert. Give me the phone, David said. Marcus handed over his cell and watched David's expression grow grave during the conversation. They found me, David said finally. We need to move everything now. For the first time Marcus could see past David into the room. What he saw took his breath away. The hotel room had been transformed into a high-tech command center. Multiple laptops connected to external monitors, cables everywhere, sophisticated equipment humming on every surface. Digital displays showed streaming data, network diagrams, real-time city infrastructure monitoring. My God, Marcus whispered. You've been doing all this from a hotel room. David was rapidly shutting down systems and packing equipment. Sometimes the best place to hide is in plain sight. Hotels have excellent internet, and no one expects a cybersecurity operation from room 412. How long do we have? If they've pinpointed this location, maybe 20 minutes, but the final phase is almost complete. David gestured to his workstation. I've traced their entire network, identified attack vectors, implemented countermeasures. In 10 minutes, every system they plan to attack will be permanently protected. Agent Rodriguez's voice crackled through the phone. David, we're sending extraction, but they're 15 minutes out. Can you hold position? Negative. If they breach before I finish, months of work are lost and the attack succeeds. I need an alternative. Marcus spoke before fully forming the thought. The business center. What? Our business center on the 2nd floor. High-speed internet, isolated from guest areas, separate entrance through parking garage. I can get you there unseen. For the first time in 6 days, David smiled. That could work. The next 12 minutes were the most intense of Marcus's career. While David continued his digital battle, Marcus coordinated with security to move critical equipment. Using service elevators and maintenance corridors, they relocated to the business center undetected. David re-established his operation with remarkable speed. His fingers flew across keyboards as code streamed across monitors. Marcus watched in fascination as David monitored the city's power grid, hospital networks, water treatment, emergency services. "There," David said suddenly, exhaustion and relief in his voice. Final countermeasure deployed. On screens, Marcus watched attacking programs hit digital walls David had spent 6 days building. One by one, intrusions failed. The attacker's network, secretly mapped for months, was suddenly exposed and neutralized. "David, we're seeing results." Agent Rodriguez's voice came through. "All systems secure. Attack completely thwarted." David leaned back, finally showing how exhausted he was. 3 million people will wake up tomorrow with working lights, running water, functioning hospitals. They'll never know how close they came to losing it all. Marcus stared at the man who had spent a week in his hotel fighting an invisible war. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because the best security requires nobody knows security exists." If anyone knew what was happening in room 412, it could have compromised everything. Over the next hour, FBI agents arrived to secure the scene and debrief David. Marcus learned the full scope of what had been prevented. The cyber attack would have shut down traffic systems during rush hour, causing massive accidents. Hospitals would have lost power during surgeries. Water treatment plants would have been contaminated. The economic and human cost would have been catastrophic. 2 weeks later, the Grand Metropolitan received a commendation from the FBI, praising staff cooperation in a national security matter. The letter couldn't specify details, but noted the hotel had played a crucial role in preventing a major threat. Marcus kept the letter in his office, but more importantly, he kept the memory of those 6 days when a quiet guest in room 412 had been saving lives while the world slept peacefully. David checked out that morning, leaving room 412 exactly as he'd found it. To housekeeping, it looked like any other room after a week-long stay. Only Marcus knew this unremarkable room had been the command center for one of the most important cybersecurity operations in the city's history. Months later, Marcus would get calls from federal agents asking about rooms for consultants needing privacy and excellent internet. He always accommodated without question, understanding that sometimes the most important work happens in ordinary places. Next time you're in a hotel and notice a guest who keeps to themselves, never leaves their room, remember David Chen. Ordinary-looking people sometimes carry extraordinary responsibilities, fighting battles we never see to keep our world safe. Sometimes the most important heroes are the ones whose names we'll never know, working tirelessly in hotel rooms and office buildings, standing between us and those who would do us harm. What would you have done in Marcus's position? Would you have questioned unusual behavior or respected privacy? When agents asked for help, would you have risked your career to save your city? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe to The Last Witness for more incredible stories.